Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Vielleicht nur als Impulsant.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Raisha Sehgal. On the show today, we continue to track what is happening in West Asia. In the latest, Iran has rejected calls by the US and Arab nations to de-escalate tensions in West Asia, saying that the assassination of Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh will not go unanswered, even if it sparks a war in the region. We'll, of course, be tracking all of that on World DNA today.
Also on the show, massive demonstrations rocked Bangladesh, leaving over 90 people dead. This is after thousands took to the streets across the nation demanding the ouster of Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. India has issued an advisory to its citizens in Bangladesh. We are going to be tracking the latest coming in from Dhaka. Let's get started with the headlines.
Iran rejects attempts by the US and Arab nations to de-escalate tensions as Israel braces for an attack from the Islamic Republic and the Lebanese Iran-backed Hezbollah group.
Netanyahu blames Hamas for a long-stalled deal to end the war in Gaza and release Israeli hostages over 300 days after it began with an attack on Israeli border communities on October 7.
Pressure mounts on Netanyahu as demonstrations rock the streets of Tel Aviv. Families of the hostages call for an immediate truce deal, seeking their release.
Bangladesh minister claims that rioters have set fire to Banga Bandhu Medical College Hospital as massive protests rock the country, leaving over 90 dead. India has asked its citizens living in Bangladesh to be in touch and remain alert.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer unilaterally condemns the recent anti-immigration riots, calls them far-right thuggery, warns demonstrators that they would regret participating in England's worst rioting in 13 years.
Ukrainian pilots start flying F-16s for operations within the nation, says President Zelensky, confirming the long-awaited arrival of the US-made fighter jets more than 29 months after Russia's invasion.
Tropical storm Debby is expected to strengthen rapidly into a hurricane before making a landfall in Florida's Gulf Coast. The U.S. National Hurricane Center warns of life-threatening ocean surges.
Search operations enter day 7 after over 300 are killed in multiple landslides that hit Kerala's Wayanad last week, as chances of survivors remain bleak.
Iman Khalif speaks on gender controversy for the first time. The Algerian boxer says misconception about her gender harm human dignity and affect her greatly. At least 93 people, including 13 policemen, have been killed in the violent clashes that have broken out between the security forces and demonstrators in Bangladesh.
Now, this as thousands took to the streets across the nation, demanding the ouster of Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina following her regime's harsh crackdown on the job quota reform protests.
Well, apart from Dhaka, at least 15 districts in Bangladesh reported violent clashes on Sunday. The death toll was the highest for a single day from any demonstrations in Bangladesh's recent history, surpassing the 67 deaths reported earlier on July 19th when students took to the streets to demand the removal of quotas for government jobs.
Mohammad Arafat, Bangladesh's Minister of Information and Broadcasting, took to social media to post a video of agitators setting Bangabandhu Medical University Hospital ablaze. Arafat chastised the so-called protesters for engaging in thuggery and violence in the name of a peaceful movement.
This as demonstrators blocked highways demanding Hasina to step down. University faculties have proposed an interim government. This while the movement has preponed a long march to Dhaka earlier scheduled for August 6th to today. In the face of these clashes, the Home Ministry imposed an indefinite nationwide curfew. Railways and internet services remain suspended amid the ongoing crisis in Bangladesh. The government has announced a 3-day public holiday beginning today, and this is the first time that the Bangladesh government has taken such a step in the face of demonstrations that began last month.
Dozens of people have been killed and scores were injured in clashes in Bangladesh on Sunday. Police fired tear gas and lobbed stun grenades as tens of thousands of protesters took to the streets, calling for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to resign.
All the ministers are in hiding. Wait and see how the people will go and surround the Prime Minister's house. If Sheikh Hasina doesn't resign voluntarily, we will take our next step.
The Interior Ministry declared an indefinite nationwide curfew starting at 6 p.m. local time on Sunday. It's the first time it has taken such a step during the current protests, which began last month. The unrest is the government's biggest test since deadly protests erupted after Hasina won a 4th straight term in January elections that were boycotted by the main opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party. Critics of Hasina, along with human rights groups, have accused her government of using excessive force to stamp out the movement, a charge she and her ministers deny. Demonstrators blocked major highways on Sunday as student protesters launched a non-cooperation programme to press for the government's resignation. After a national security panel meeting, Hasina said those protesting were, quote, not students but terrorists who are out to destabilise the nation. For the second time during the recent protests, the government shut down high-speed internet services, mobile operators said. Some social media platforms were also unavailable. Last month, at least 150 people were killed and thousands more were injured and arrested in violence sparked by demonstrations led by student groups protesting against quotas for government jobs. The protests paused after the Supreme Court scrapped most quotas. But students sporadically returned to the streets last week, demanding justice for the families of those killed.
United Kingdom is on the boil. Violence has intensified in several towns and cities in the latest wave of unrest after 3 girls were killed in a knife attack at a children's dance class in Southport just last week.
In the latest incident, a mob of over 100 masked demonstrators broke several windows of Rotherham's Holiday Inn Express Hotel and tried to set it ablaze. The hotel was being used as an accommodation for the asylum seekers. Some demonstrators carried Union Jacks and England flags and chanted at the police officers and towards the hotel.
More than 100 people have been arrested in the last 24 hours. Police has blamed disinformation surfacing online for driving the appalling violence and added that the posts are often being shared and amplified by high-profile accounts.
Earlier, skirmishes were also witnessed at far-right demonstrations in Middlesbrough, Bristol, Nottingham, Rotterdam, as well as Belfast in Northern Ireland.
In some instances, rioters threw bricks and bottles and flares at the police, injuring several officers, looted and burnt shops as well. The violence is the worst that England has seen since the summer of 2011, when widespread rioting took place following the killing of a mixed-race man in North London. Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned the protests, calling them organised, violent thuggery.
I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow.
West Asia continues to be on edge. Reports now suggest that Iran has rejected calls by the US and Arab nations to temper its response to the killing of Hamas and Hezbollah leaders.
Well, of course, this comes after Iran warned that Hezbollah will strike deeper targets inside Israel, even if it means an all-out war for the region. In a bid to reduce tensions in the region, Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi travelled to Iran on Sunday with a plea for an end to the escalation of violence. However, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said that the assassination of Haniyeh in Tehran was a major mistake by the Zionist regime that will not go unanswered.
Well, Israel is currently preparing for the possibility of an Iranian-led attack that would include missiles being fired at Israel over the course of multiple days. According to reports, Israel's security establishments were mulling the possibility of preventive actions or attacks and has clearly outlined that the state of Israel is in a multi-front war against Iran's axis of evil.
The state of Israel is in a multi-arena war against Iran's axis of evil. We are striking hard at any of its arms. We are prepared for any scenario, both on the defense and the offensive side. I tell our enemies again, we will react and exact a heavy price for any act of hostility towards us.
Meanwhile, the US is continuing to help Israel against any kind of an Iranian retaliation. After deploying fighter jets and aircraft carriers in the region, White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby asserted that Washington has the capabilities in the region to help defend Israel.
Look, when the Supreme Leader says he's going to avenge, we have to take that seriously. Now, I don't know what they're going to do or when they're going to do it, but we got to make darn sure that we're ready and that we have the capabilities in the region to be able to help Israel defend itself and, quite frankly, defend our own people, our own facilities, our own national security interests.
The US is also scrambling to revive a coalition that had succeeded in thwarting the Iranian attack on Israel in April this year. However, with Haniyeh's assassination, there are questions being raised if Tel Aviv will receive the same level of cooperation or not.
Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken spoke with Iraqi Prime Minister Soudani to discuss how all parties in the region can calm tensions and advance stability in the region. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has blamed Hamas for stalling the ceasefire deal in Gaza.
Netanyahu has said that while Israel has agreed to the initial outline of a deal, Hamas continues to demand more changes.
Now, the peace talks have been ongoing for many months without any kind of a result. And world leaders, including US President Joe Biden, have opined that Netanyahu has been intentionally stalling for internal political reasons.
But Netanyahu has passed the blame, saying that the deal is delayed because Hamas has not backed down from its demand for Israel to end the war.
The simple truth is that until this moment, Hamas has not agreed to the most basic terms of the outline. While we have not added a single demand to the outline, Hamas is the one demanding to include tens of changes. It has not backed down from its demand that Israel cannot return to war. It demands from us to withdraw from Philadelphia corridor and the Rafah crossing. Its lifeline that will allow it to rearm and again grow stronger. It's important to establish the principle. We are not leaving there.
Netanyahu's statement comes after diplomatic efforts in Cairo ended without progress. A high-level Israeli delegation made a brief visit to the Egyptian capital on Saturday in an attempt to resume Gaza ceasefire negotiations. According to Israeli media, the officials returned to Israel hours later.
Meanwhile, Israeli demonstrators continue to demand that the government should reach a deal to release all hostages held in Gaza. Hundreds of Israeli demonstrators gathered on the Begin Street in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and clashed with the police.
Waving the Israeli flag and chanting, protesters held banners and marched on. The families of the hostages called on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to step down if he does not finalize a deal. They criticized the government's handling of the conflict, including the war with Hamas in Gaza and the increasing tension with Hezbollah in Lebanon.
In the absence of a deal, cross-border fire between Israel and Hamas continues. This as Israel also braces for a serious escalation at its northern border with Iran-backed group Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Tensions have also mounted on a third front, which is Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthi movement. In the latest, the Houthis have downed a US drone MQ-9 over the country's northern Sada province. The attack would be the first to be claimed by the Houthis, since Israel carried out a retaliatory airstrike against them in the port of Hodeidah.
The Air Defense Forces of the Yemeni Armed Forces shot down an American aircraft type MQ-9 while it was carrying out hostile acts in the airspace of the Sada Governorate, using a locally manufactured surface-to-air missile. The aircraft is the seventh of its type that was shot down during the Battle of the Promised Victory and the Holy Jihad in support of Gaza.
Well, even as Israel faces threats on multiple fronts, it has continued its offensive in Gaza.
On Sunday, Israeli airstrikes hit several locations in Gaza, including 2 schools and a hospital compound. Here's a complete report.
Israeli airstrikes hit several locations in Gaza on Sunday. including this tent encampment inside a hospital in the central part of the enclave. The attacks killed at least 35 people and wounded dozens of others, according to Gaza health officials. Video obtained by Reuters showed groups of Palestinians throwing buckets of water and using fire extinguishers to put out a fire that occurred after the strike. The Israeli military said it was targeting a militant who conducted terror activities, and that secondary explosions were identified, indicating weapons were present in the area. The hospital compound is crowded with thousands of people displaced by fighting in other parts of Gaza, including Saeed al-Daya. He said people were sleeping when the rocket struck, setting the tent on fire. A woman was killed after getting hit by shrapnel in the back. A separate Israeli airstrike hit 2 schools in Gaza City, Palestinian officials said, while the Israeli military said it struck a Hamas military compound embedded in the schools. Footage showed bodies scattered inside the yard of one of the schools as residents rushed to assist the injured. The attacks come the day after ceasefire talks in Cairo ended without result. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blamed Hamas for a long-stalled deal to end the war in Gaza and release Israeli hostages. He said Hamas has not agreed to the most basic terms of the outline, while Israel has not added a single demand to the outline. Netanyahu said Hamas is the one demanding to include tens of changes. Israel is bracing for a serious escalation following the assassination of Hamas's leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran on Wednesday. Netanyahu was due to convene special security discussions late on Sunday, a defense official said, following threats of retaliation from Iran and others, while U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was talking to leaders in the Middle East, seeking to calm tensions, according to the State Department.
Shifting focus to the Russia-Ukraine war, Ukraine has received its first batch of the much-awaited US-made F-16 fighter jets.
Right, Shivan, a move meant to replace Ukraine's aging fleet of Soviet-era warplanes in the midst of the ongoing war with Russia. While Kiev also hopes that the new fighter jets will help them defeat the Russian forces, allowing them to begin air dominance on the war front. The next report telling you more.
Jets are in our sky, and officially today you see them, and it's good that they came and we can use them.
Ukrainian pilots will now be flying in US-made F-16s for operations within the country, said President Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday. The long-awaited fighter jets arrived more than 29 months after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Zelensky said, however, the country still did not have enough jets or pilots. But he noted many soldiers are now undergoing training. It remains unclear how many jets Ukraine received and how much impact they will have on the battlefield. Kiev has long lobbied for the F-16s due to their destructive power and global availability. It currently has an aging fleet of Soviet-era warplanes.
We had hundreds of meetings and talks to strengthen the capabilities of our aviation, to strengthen the capabilities of our air defense system, of our defense forces. We often heard it is impossible as an answer, but we still made our ambition, our defensive need possible. Now this is reality, reality in our skies. F-16s are in Ukraine.
The new jets come equipped with a 20mm cannon and can carry bombs, rockets, and missiles. Russia has been targeting bases that may house the F-16s and vowed to shoot them down.
Moving on, the cost of living crisis has put Nigeria on the edge. Unrelenting demonstrators are back on the streets for the 4th day in a row.
As the protests spiral, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has called for the suspension of nationwide protests and an end to the bloodshed. In a nationwide televised broadcast, President Tinubu says he is open for a dialogue, and this is the Nigerian president's first public statement ever since frustrated citizens took to the streets last week.
We must stop further bloodshed, violence and destruction. Our government will not stand idly by and allow a few with a clear political agenda to tear this nation apart. Under the circumstances, I hereby enjoin protesters and the organizers to suspend any further protest and create room for dialogue.
Tinubu, who has been in office since May 2023, defended his economic reforms, saying that tough decisions were required to reverse the economic mismanagement.
These decisions are made were necessary if we must reverse the decades of economic mismanagement that didn't serve us well. Yes, I agree, the buck stops on my table, but I can assure you that I am focused fully on delivering the governance to the people.
Meanwhile, protesters in the commercial city of Lagos and the capital city Abuja say the president did not address their concerns. They allege he has also failed to call for the arrest of the policemen who allegedly killed protesters in the last 3 days. According to Amnesty International, at least 13 people have lost their lives in clashes with security forces on the first day of protests on Thursday. However, the Nigerian police has denied using excessive force on protesters.
Someone like Tinubu, seriously, honestly, I don't expect anything much from him because he is more like a dictator. He's someone that sucks wherever he is. He drives it for his own benefit. So if he hasn't benefited from the nation yet, he and his cabal, there's nothing much he can say about our needs.
Nigerians have been mobilizing online to organize demonstrations against economic hardship and bad governance. They have called for a cut in petrol prices and electricity tariffs, among other several demands.
Africa's most populous country is battling high inflation and a tumbling naira. After Tinubu ended a fuel subsidy and liberalized the currency more than a year ago on reforms, the government says it will improve the economy in the long term. All right, time now for a quick break. Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. We will be back on the other side.
And on the other side of this quick short break, we continue to get you rolling coverage on the deadly Wayanad landslides in Kerala as the rescue operations enter day 7.
Also on the other side, companies worldwide are feeling the pinch as China's economy continues to face a slowdown. We'll bring you the latest on that and a lot more right here on World DNA. Come right back.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The quest for an Olympic medal has begun. History is being made at the Paris Olympics.
Manu Bhaker has created history here in Chateau.
And the history makers are speaking exclusively to WION.
I'm living my dream, and it's not like it's going to end here.
The best in the world have descended upon Paris, defying gravity and setting new benchmarks. And we are there to cover it all.
The Olympic Games are the pinnacle of sport, and they demand sacrifices from both sportspersons and those covering it. I'm Digvijay Singhdeo, and I will be tracking the best in sport from here in Paris.
Can Team India reach a double-digit medal tally?
The Olympics is a sweet bread, but it comes with pressure, for sure.
Watch Gunning for Glory through the Paris Olympics at these times on WION.
Welcome back, viewers. This is World DNA with Resha and I'm Shivan. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show. Let's start with the headlines.
Iran rejects attempts by the US and Arab nations to de-escalate tensions as Israel braces for an attack from the Islamic Republic and the Lebanese Iran-backed Hezbollah group.
Netanyahu blames Hamas for a long-stalled deal to end the war in Gaza and release Israeli hostages over 300 days after it began with an attack on Israeli border communities on the 7th of October.
Pressure mounts on Netanyahu as the demonstrations rock the streets of Tel Aviv. Families of the hostages call for an immediate truce deal, seeking the release of their loved ones.
Bangladesh minister claims that rioters have set fire to Banga Bandhu Medical College Hospital in Dhaka as massive protests rock the country, leaving over 90 dead. India has asked its citizens living in Bangladesh to be in touch and remain alert.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer unilaterally condemns the recent anti-immigration riots, calls them far-right thuggery, warns demonstrators that they would regret participating in England's worst rioting in 13 years.
Ukrainian pilots start flying F-16s for operations within the nation, says President Zelensky, confirming the long-awaited arrival of the US-made fighter jets more than 29 months after Russia's invasion.
Tropical storm Debby is expected to strengthen rapidly into a hurricane before making landfall in Florida's Gulf Coast. The U.S. National Hurricane Center warns of life-threatening ocean surges.
Officials hold last rites of unidentified victims as search operations enter day 7 after over 300 are killed in multiple landslides that hit Kerala's Wayanad last week as chances of survivors remain bleak.
Iman Khalif speaks on gender controversy for the first time. The Algerian boxer says misconception about her gender harm human dignity and affect her greatly.
Team USA powers to women's 4 by 100 meter medley relay in a new world record time. The Americans hit the wall in 3 minutes 49.63 seconds, beating the previous record of 3 minutes 50.4 seconds.
Officials hold last riots of unidentified victims of Wayanad landslide.
The grim roster of people killed in the incident has crossed 300. Over 100 continue to be missing. Even as search and rescue operations in the affected areas enter day 7, the rescue personnel continue to scan various parts of worst-hit villages using advanced equipment and modern sensor for signs of survivors.
Even though the chances of finding them remain bleak, multiple landslides on July 30th flattened 3 villages, which housed over 400 buildings, including houses, education institutions, and places of worship.
Meanwhile, Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan said that the model of rehabilitation implemented in the aftermath of 2019 Puthumala landslide will form the basis of the rehabilitation plan now as well. Vijayan said that a secure region will be identified and a township will be constructed.
The state has already started to receive offers to provide land and construct houses from private and public institutions. Congress has offered to build 100 houses. Sobha Group and Kozhikode-based business club have also offered to build 50 houses each.
Tropical storm Debby is expected to turn into a Category 1 hurricane before it makes landfall in Florida's Big Bend region around Monday morning.
With forecast winds of up to 150 kilometers per hour, the majority of the Florida Peninsula's west coast is under a tropical storm. Well, rain is predicted to be the most impactful element of the storm. Officials in Florida, Georgia and South Carolina are urging residents to prepare for heavy rain and possible flooding.
Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis has warned people of severe flooding following the landfall. As per the National Hurricane Center, the storm will go through rapid strengthening to intensify into a hurricane overnight.
And we are looking at potentially really significant flooding that will happen, particularly in north central Florida as this storm makes landfall in Florida and then heads northeast across southeast Georgia, or southern Georgia and northern Florida. So the message is make sure you're executing your plan now. As the storm comes, you may get hit with an awful lot of water, a lot of rain. There may be immediate impacts that you see, but you could also see flooding that happens days afterwards, after the storm passes.
But if you get some of these rainfall amounts that we're predicting, potentially over 20 inches, you're talking about, catastrophic flooding. It'll be incredibly unsafe to move around. So what do? What actions do you take if you're in this swath of heavy rain? Go ahead and get your supplies now.
Tropical storm and storm surge warnings have also been issued for parts of Florida, coastal Georgia and parts of South Carolina. Also, over 13 million people across Florida Peninsula and southern Georgia are under a tornado watch. Evacuation orders have been issued in the Al-Khua County for people residing in the homes, manufactured homes and also recreational vehicles.
Storm-related thunderstorms have prompted the cancellation of over 1,600 flights. American Airlines have claimed to cancel over 600 flights on Sunday, and this accounts for about 16% of flight cancellations, which is the most for any airline. North Carolina's Charlotte Douglas International Airport reported the highest number of flight cancellations, with 214 flights cancelled and over 170 others delayed. In New York City, at least 363 have been cancelled and 258 delayed, while Miami International Airport reported 209 cancelled and over 150 delayed. Direct flights between China and the United States are outpacing passenger demand. Despite a gradual increase in routes, planes are flying with significantly fewer passengers.
And this is before the pandemic. Well, this mismatch between supply and demand is a growing concern for the aviation industry. Passenger loads on direct China-US flights have reached 75% this summer compared to a global average of 85%. The number of flights between the two countries is currently 23.6% of pre-pandemic levels, with seat occupancy down to 25%. This stark contrast highlights a major imbalance in the market.
Several factors are contributing to this decline in passenger numbers. Visa restrictions imposed by both countries have made travel significantly more difficult. Economic uncertainty, particularly in China, has reduced consumer spending on international travel. The US-China trade war has also impacted business travel as investors become more cautious.
As a result, China has fallen to 13th place on the list of top international markets for the US routes, such as those through Seoul or Taipei, which are becoming increasingly popular due to lower ticket prices.
Meanwhile, the aviation industry is facing significant challenges. Airlines are operating with low passenger loads, leading to financial losses. Overcapacity in the market has prompted US airlines to call for restrictions on Chinese carriers. Despite these difficulties, airlines are hesitant to reduce the number of flights, hoping for a potential increase in demand in the future. However, with ongoing geopolitical tensions and economic uncertainties, the recovery of the China-US aviation market remains uncertain.
Well, the once booming economy of China is now casting a long shadow over global markets.
From tech giants to luxury brands, companies worldwide are feeling the pinch. We'll break down how China's slowdown is impacting your wallet and what it means for the global economy. Take a look at this next report.
China, the world's second largest economy, is faltering. A protracted downturn in the property market and rising job insecurity have dampened consumer spending. This slowdown is rippling across the globe, affecting businesses from fast food to automobiles. Retail sales have dropped to an 18-month low, and companies are slashing prices to attract customers. Starbucks, McDonald's, and Procter & Gamble have reported weaker sales in China. The luxury goods industry is also feeling the pinch, with LVMH, Kering, Burberry, and Hugo Boss issuing profit warnings. The automotive sector is facing intense competition in China. Domestic electric vehicle makers, led by BYD, are gaining market share at the expense of foreign brands like Tesla, BMW, Audi, and Mercedes. To counter this, foreign automakers are engaged in a price war. Meanwhile, the tech industry is grappling with mixed fortunes. While semiconductor companies like Broadcom and Qualcomm are benefiting from the AI boom, other tech firms are facing challenges. US export restrictions on high-end chip technology to China are impacting companies like Qualcomm. China's economic slowdown has caught the world off guard. Despite government stimulus efforts, consumer confidence remains low. analysts warn of a prolonged period of near stagnation with the risk of deflation. The mounting trade tensions and domestic policies such as the anti-corruption campaign are further complicating the business environment. The question now is whether China can successfully shift its economy towards greater consumer spending, or if the country is headed for a long period of economic challenges. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
Let's now take a look at all the news from the world of technology. Tencent Holdings has announced the closure of WeChat Pay in Malaysia, ending the service after 6 years of operation. The move reflects the company's changing dynamics of services aimed at local consumers versus international visitors. Tencent Holdings has been trying to realign its focus on catering specifically to Chinese tourists in the region. WeChat Pay Malaysia will discontinue its local payment services on September 1st this year, and the company has asked its Malaysian customers to withdraw their funds by the end of this year.
According to reports, Meta is in discussions with actors Awkwafina, Keegan, Michael Key and Judi Dench, as well as some influencers, for the right to use their voices in their upcoming artificial intelligence projects. Meta aims to use the celebrity voices in Meta AI, its digital assistant product. Reports further suggest that Meta is aiming to close the deal and announce it during the company's Technology Connect 2024 event in September.
Access to Braille text remains a major challenge for many visually impaired students in Africa. It has led to many school dropouts. However, a new smartphone app called the Blind Assistant app is hoping to change the lives of these visually impaired students. It is made by a group of Ugandan manufacturers. The app scans texts and reads them aloud, eliminating the need to translate them into Braille. The company is currently handing out smartphones to visually impaired students for free. According to a 2014 national census, there are more than 250,000 visually impaired people in Uganda. Out of those, around 1,500 of them are school children. The manufacturers hope to equip more than 1,000 students across the country.
There finally seems to be a successor to Usain Bolt. Noah Lyles has won his maiden 100-meter Olympic title.
And he's the first American to take gold in this blue ribbon event since Justin Gatlin in 2004. Lyles is a showman and he made a dramatic entry as the eight finalists were introduced to a capacity crowd at the Stade de France. He had been beaten by Jamaican Oblique Sewell in the semi-finals after a slow start, while the fastest time across the three semis was set by another Jamaican, Kishan Thompson. Defending champion Marcel Jacobs of Italy had set a season's best, and the stage was set for a cracking race.
Lyles didn't have the greatest of starts again, but he made up ground by the halfway mark. Thompson, Seville, Fred Curley and the South African Akian Simbin were all in the pack, thundering down towards the finishing straight, and confusion refined. Simbin was fourth for the second straight Olympics, while Jacobs finished fifth with a season's best time. Lyles won 3 golds at the 2023 World Championship, including the 100-200 double. He is on course for 3 golds here too.
When I saw my name, I was like, I didn't do this against a slow crowd or a field. I did this against the best of the best on the biggest stage with the biggest pressure. And seeing that name, I was like, oh my gosh, there it is. And I wasn't even entered in the 100 in 2021. So that was, here I am, first Olympics in the 100, going around now the Olympic champion and, having that title of not just at World Championships, but at the Olympics of world's fastest man.
The sport of athletics has been searching for Usain Bolt's successor ever since the great Jamaican retired in 2017. In Noah Lyles, they have the perfect package. He runs fast and he also genuinely wants to be the most famous face in the sport. Bolt's 100-meter record is a long way off, but Lyles has momentum on his side and will be targeting Bolt's 200-meter record in a few days from now. In Paris, this is Digvijay Singhdeo for WION.
Well, India are through to the semi-finals of the men's hockey tournament at the Paris Games after an extraordinary victory over Great Britain.
Goalkeeper Srijesh was India's hero in the shootout, and he spoke exclusively to WION's sports editor Digvijay Singhdeo in Paris. Listen to this.
India have beaten Great Britain in perhaps one of the most remarkable hockey matches that you will ever see. The good news is you're still not retired.
Yes. The first moment when I stepped on this field, I just walked into the center of the field and I just looked at the goalpost and I was thinking like whether it's going to be my last match or am I going to play 2 more matches. And that was fantastic. We had a wonderful match today. Unfortunate things happens between, but I believe that the entire team done a fantastic job.
I remember you telling me once during after Tokyo, that Diggy, anything would happen, I'm not going to concede in the shootout, I would make us win. The team handled everything and then you went in a shoot-off. And then Srijesh came to the fore. 2 saves, 2 crucial saves. Talk me through your process, because right now, at all due respect to the political establishment in India, if they do a poll right now, only one man's winning that election, that is Srijesh.
Say, first thing, I do have enough experience facing shootouts. Second thing is the way I played this match. I think that given me enough of confidence to step on and save that balls. Third thing, when the players comes to me, they showcase that confidence. I mean, when your teammates trust you a lot, that's the best part. And when I consider the first 2 goals, I think the players they were scoring, and that gives me enough confidence to just stay there. I feel like, okay, here it comes, just go and save. And
hang on, you didn't change your routine. You did exactly the same thing to throw them off track. When they were coming, you did the same. You walked towards them, sort of try to intimidate them.
Say, there are certain things which goalkeeper follows a lot. And I tried a lot of new things as well, but I think you may not notice it. But still, putting pressure on the players is the easiest way, and I just done it. But I should say this, those 4 guys who took the penalty shootout, they made my job really easy because they scored, I saved, and it's a good scenario for us.
All right, next up, let's get you the latest from entertainment, beginning with Deadpool and Wolverine. After 10 days of being in the theatre, it's already one of 2024's highest-grossing movies. Internationally, the Sean Levy-directed Deadpool and Wolverine has quickly amassed $824.1 million in ticket sales. The total has already surpassed the global hauls of the first 2 Deadpool films. The 2016 original grossed $782.6 million worldwide, while the 2018 sequel collected $734.5 million.
Cardi B is seeking primary custody of her children with rapper Offset, including a baby on the way. The Grammy-winning hip-hop superstar is also seeking child support from Offset, who is known for his successful solo career. Details of Cardi B's requests were included in the divorce documents. Cardi B and Offset have 2 children together, and she's pregnant with their 3rd child.
Rock band Aerosmith has announced that Steven Tyler's voice has been permanently damaged by a vocal cord injury last year. The band will no longer tour. The iconic band behind hits like Love in an Elevator and Livin' on the Edge posted a statement announcing the cancellation of remaining dates on its tour. Aerosmith is a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee and a 4-time Grammy-winning band.
Justin Timberlake made a virtual court appearance for his drunken driving case on Long Island. The judge accepted his not guilty plea but suspended his right to drive in New York. Timberlake, who is on a tour in Europe, was not required by the court to return to the US for his court date. And that's all that we have in today's edition of World DNA.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Come right back after this.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The quest for an Olympic medal has begun. History is being made at the Paris Olympics.
Manu Bhaker has created history here in Shatru.
And the history makers are speaking exclusively to WION.
I'm living my dream, and it's not like it's going to end here.
The best in the world have descended upon Paris, defying gravity and setting new benchmarks. And we are there to cover it all.
The Olympic Games are the pinnacle of sport, and they demand sacrifices from both sportspersons and those covering it. I'm Digvijay Singhdeo, and I will be tracking the best in sport from here in Paris.
Can Team India reach a double-digit medal tally?
The Olympics, it's a sweet bread, but it comes with pressure, for sure.
Watch Gunning for Glory through the Paris Olympics at these